Today, I'm going to walk you through everything that we've learned from hosting over 1,500 trips on Turo. So we were able to reach 1,500 trips within 2 years of being on the platform. Today, we're going to walk you through everything we've learned on that journey, all the headaches we've avoided, all of the pitfalls, the downfalls, and all the golden nuggets we've learned that have led us to have the most successful car rental business in Pittsburgh. Let's get after it. Hey guys, it's George with Car Rental Coach. If you're looking to grow a Turo business like we have, or already have Turo cars and you're looking to scale, make sure to click on the notification bell and subscribe so you never miss a new video and we help you on your car sharing journey. We consult with clients every single day and help them build passive income through car rentals while avoiding all of the obstacles we came across while doing this ourselves. We only take on so many clients at once. So if you want to see if you qualify to work with us, go to carrentalcoach.com and fill out the 60-second survey to see if we could be a good fit to help you grow your car fleet and maximize your profits. The number one thing I've learned from hosting over 1,500 trips on Turo is your reputation is the most important thing you have. Reputation is more important than the type of cars you have, the fancy bells and whistles, any of the tricks these other Turo guys are going to try to teach you. Your reviews and your reputation is what's going to bring back customers every single time. And that is the difference between being the number one host and the number two host on Turo. So when I first started the Turo business, I thought of all of these different ways to get reviews. The first thing I actually did was buy Starbucks gift cards and gas gift cards to put in the cars. What I would do is I would take a piece of tape, write a nice message with a smiley face that said, please leave a review if you enjoyed your trip. And I'd give them a $5 gift card to Starbucks or a $5 gas card. And I believe the gas cards were the sheets, not that that matters. Anyways, nobody was leaving me reviews. They were just taking the gift cards and I wasn't collecting anymore. And I would get a few reviews from it, but really nothing that noticeable that made it worth giving $5 out every single time. So from there, I thought I was smart and I decided to do water bottles. I bought cases and cases of water, and I didn't buy the cheap water either. I bought the essential waters, they're like $2 a pop, but I bought them in the case loads, and I bought stickers that were like they said 5 stars on them, like please leave a 5-star review. And I put a sticker on every single water bottle. I left them in the cars, and I was thinking, oh, well, if I could go from $5 to get a review to $2, big savings, right? Well, still, nothing really happened. So it made me question, why was I giving so much away at the beginning? I watched other Turo Host videos and they recommended doing this, and that's the reason I actually started by giving away so much stuff. And I probably spent over $500 of my money that could have just been put into investing in another car into trying to collect reviews. Then I learned that the best way to actually get a review from a customer was to simply message them once their trip was over, asking for a review. I had about an 80% conversion rate of getting reviews at that point compared to a 10 to 15% conversion rate. When you actually get the message on the app, it makes sense because the user's already looking on the Turo app. Now they're only a few button clicks away from leaving a review. If they get into the car, you give them a Starbucks gift card, a gas gift card, whatever it is, they still have to then log into the Turo app, and it still has more friction than if you're actually sending the message on Turo. They're looking at it and they're only 2 clicks away from leaving you a review. But that being said, asking for a review is not the only way to build up your reputation. Reputation is more than just a review. So the reviews help with the Turo algorithm, and that's what's going to skyrocket you to the very top of search results, and that is very important. But how do you provide a customer with a 5-star experience? Well, this is what I've learned from doing over 1,500 trips on Turo. Number 1, make sure your vehicles are clean. I cannot stress that enough. You're going to have guests that leave your vehicle very dirty, and you may only have a few hours in between trips to get it ready for the next guest. That's not an excuse to not have a perfect detail every time. Every single time our cars go out before a trip, they are inspected and cleaned meticulously. We don't like there to be any dirt. Interior is completely vacuumed out. Seats are scrubbed if they're dirty and needed. Thresholds are always wiped down. We disinfect the steering wheel, anything the guests would touch on their hands, with alcohol wipes to prevent germs. And our guests really do appreciate that. I put air fresheners in the vehicles. unless a guest sends us a message specifically saying that they are allergic to air fresheners, which, believe it or not, I have had a few people ask me to not put air fresheners in the cars, which I understand completely, so we accommodate guests based on that. Make sure there's no odor in the car at all. You're going to have guests that bring animals in the cars. You're going to have guests that smoke in the cars. I would say smoking is actually a very, very common thing to find, whether it's marijuana or cigarettes. You're always going to have that lingering smell, so if you do, don't skimp out and just leave the windows down. That's not good enough. I've tried it at the beginning, and I thought I would get the smell out doing that, and then embarrassingly enough, I would send the car out with still just the small lingering smell of marijuana or tobacco because I didn't have time to get the scent out for the guest. And that resulted in complaints. It wasn't the best experience. Some customers didn't mind. They would message me and say things like, hey, just want to let you know that the car smells a little bit of marijuana, and I just wanted to let you know that it wasn't me that smoked in it. And I hated seeing those messages. It was embarrassing. That's not the way I like to do business. We like to keep all the cars smelling consistently clean with no odor. So what we started doing was buying something called smoke bombs. You can buy those at any AutoZone or car shop, and even like Walmart's and Targets might carry them, but I get most of mine from either AutoZone or Amazon. Anyways, these things are around $8. You put them in the car, you put the AC on or the heat, depending on the instructions for the particular bomb. Open your vents up. It allows the scent bomb to then circulate throughout the vehicle, and it eliminates all the odor more than any other products I've been able to find. They're around $9 to $10, but that does not mean you should skimp on buying them. They are going to make sure you get better reviews and eliminate the smell of marijuana and tobacco every single time. And also remember, when you're on the Turo platform, if somebody does smoke in your car and you can prove it, you do get $150 for a smoking violation. So take $10 of that $150 you make on Turo and buy a smoke bomb, and don't be cheap. And that's going to make sure your guests are happy every single time. So cleaning is the number one thing you need to focus on when it comes to 5-star reviews because it's the most regular part of the job. I have a full-time detailer now since I'm over 50 vehicles. I used to do it all myself when I started for actually the first 2 years, and I got sick of detailing cars because I couldn't grow the business, and that's why I hired an employee. We'll get into that in another video on when you should actually hire an employee to start scaling. But at the beginning, I do recommend you do some details yourself and you learn exactly how the business goes. I never thought I was too good to get down and dirty, and I'll still detail a car from time to time, but it really happens very rarely now since I have 2 guys working for me. But besides cleaning, which is, like I said, the most regular thing that's going to affect your reviews, maintenance is probably the most important because maintenance goes directly with safety of the vehicle. If a car smells like marijuana or tobacco or it's a little bit dirty inside, that's not going to result in somebody getting into an accident. That a poorly maintained vehicle is what's going to cause that. So when I talk about maintenance, the most regular things you're going to want to check before your car goes out are the following. Oil changes. So that's very easy to keep record of. We keep a Google sheet of our last oil change. But remember, there's also a sticker on the vehicle. So if it's you doing it or an employee, just make sure you check the mileage before every single trip and you check the sticker. I usually go off mileage and not the dates of when they recommend to get the next oil change, because in the rental business, you can't really predict the miles your car is going to be used. Some people are taking these cars on long trips, and it's not the same as the regular consumer driving their car to work and stuff every single day. So check the mileage, don't go by the date. That's very important. And everybody knows the importance of getting an oil change, because if you don't, that can lead to engine problems. And what do engine problems lead to? Huge amounts of money spent on something that could have been avoided, that can destroy your earnings completely. I've had some hosts tell me that they like to wait 1,000 or 2,000 miles past when an oil change says it's due. I don't do that myself. I go by the book on it just because I don't want to have to spend money on a blown up engine or any other issues that could arise from doing that. And I've had blown up engines on vehicles, not because of my own neglect, but because of other car problems, which we'll get into another video on which cars I don't recommend to buy. But make sure your oil changes are scheduled regularly. Don't skimp out on them, and see if you can find a discount from somebody in the area, because once you get up to 50 cars like I have, you're doing volume, and when you do volume, people are willing to lower their price in exchange exchange for your business. Now you have leverage to get better deals. The second thing you're going to want to be checking your car on before every single trip is the tire tread. So Turo has strict regulations when it comes to tire tread. They change their terms and service pretty often, so make sure just to go on Turo's site to look at the exact specifications they have for tire tread, because it may be changed at the time of this video. But really, it comes down to being a reasonable amount of tread. You don't want to send a car out with bare tires that has no tread. One, not a good way to do business. It's a safety concern, and it's not the right way to rent your vehicle. Number two, if you don't care about any of that, which you should, when somebody goes out and you don't have tread on your tires, or at least the amount that Turo specifies that you must have, and they get into an accident, your insurance is not covering that. Turo will not cover you if your tread does not fit their requirements. So even if your guest is flying and going 90 miles per hour, they're going, say, 30 miles over the speed limit in the rain, and they're driving reckless, drunk, whatever you want to call it. Just imagine the worst customer ever, just abusing your vehicle, and they crash, and your tire tread isn't up to par with Turo's requirements. No insurance check for you. You have a totaled vehicle, and if you have a loan on that vehicle, you're going to be in a very bad place. And even if you don't have a loan, like I do, I own all of my vehicles cash, then you're still out the entire cost of the vehicle. And I've never had this happen myself, so I don't know what type of legal stuff could happen to you. I'm imagining that Turo or the guest may be able to sue you in some capacity. I don't want to speak on legal advice because I'm not a lawyer, but I would not want to have to deal with that. So check your tread. Number one, like I said, it's the right way to do business. You want to give people a vehicle that has tire tread on it. But number two, you don't want to be sued. And even if you're not sued, you're not getting that insurance check. So you're losing that car and you're done for. Even if they get into a fender bender and don't total your car out, if you don't have tire tread, you're still out of luck. They're not going to repair it. And I'm sure Turo is going to put a bad mark on your profile and possibly kick you off in the future if you keep it up. So make sure your vehicle has tire tread. Cannot stress that enough. Number three, for maintenance, please make sure you are checking the fluids between every single trip. When I say checking the fluids, what do I mean by that? Make sure you're checking the windshield fluid, obvious. Make sure you're checking the oil, most important, because that's how you get blown engines and other issues with the vehicle. Number three, transmission fluid, if you're able to check the transmission fluid. Some cars and makes and models, you're not actually able to check the transmission fluid, so you have to take them to a dealer or somebody that has specialized tools to do that. Still recommend doing that every 3 to 6 months on the transmission fluid, because if it's low and you don't know it, could mess your transmission up, and that's thousands of dollars in most cases. When I first started the Turo business, I would let some of my vehicles go out for month-long trips to 2-month-long trips without any issues. We decided to keep pushing it and let the cars go out longer and longer. And then one trip went out for 3 months, and we had a guest complaining that the car wasn't running anymore. We had them bring the car back into the dealership. So it was running. When I say that, it just wasn't running well. It was making noises. We checked the oil in the vehicle, and it was bone dry, and they almost blew the engine up. That was pretty terrifying. So now when I do long-term trips, I cut them off at a certain date just to make sure that I am able to check the fluids in the vehicle, because at the end of the day, your renters aren't going to check your fluids for you. I've had people that I've asked to check fluids when they've been on long trips, and they always say, oh yeah, it's completely fine. Then they brought back the car and the oil was low. So don't ever go off the word of the people renting your vehicle. It's not their vehicle. It's not their possession. They're not responsible if something happens to it. So at the end of the day, they don't care. And I'm not an idealist. That's the world we live in. So if your cars are out for long-term trips, make sure they're brought in every so often, so you can check the fluid yourself, and do not go off just what your guest says. Then another thing when it comes to maintenance to check on your vehicles, the brakes, right? That's something that's going to be replaced every so often, so brakes and rotors. The best way to check that, simply get in the car or have your employee get in the car, take it around the lap. They should be able to notice anything wrong with the car when they're taking it to get gas or cleaning it or doing maintenance. So I have each car driven at least once every 3 weeks, at least for 10 minutes around the block by my employees, to double check that the brakes, the rotors, alignment, and everything else that could go wrong with the car is not going wrong. If you do have something that feels a little low, or say the car shakes or something, usually a guest will let you know, but we don't let that happen. We'd rather be preemptive on any issues. So make sure that your cars are driven by somebody that actually knows about cars every, say, 2 to 3 weeks after trips, and that's going to save you a lot of headache and time in the future. So besides vehicle maintenance, asking for reviews, how else can you make sure that your reputation is great and you keep that 5-star rating? Customer communication, that's how. So when I say customer communication, that means you want to respond to any guest very promptly through the Turo app. So my employees actually offer phone support and they message through the app. A lot of hosts don't do that I've spoken with. They only keep messages through the app. But what I've learned about my guests, some of them aren't the most tech savvy and they have issues messaging through Turo. So we try to do both. By offering both, you still get people messaging through the app and calling you. And a lot of hosts don't want to be bothered. But that's why you have an employee when you get this many cars, or I would be on the phone all day. And people aren't calling you just because they have issues with the vehicle. They're calling you because they want to know how to change the radio station. They're calling you because they just don't simply read the pickup and drop off directions. They're calling you because they want to ask where the closest gas station is to your dealership. They're calling you because they want to extend the vehicle, but they don't know how to simply put a request in through the Turo app. So the best way to handle that is just to be courteous. Message guests when possible so you're not wasting all of your time on the phone, because that can become monotonous, I understand. But would you rather make some extra phone calls or have a guest leave you a bad review because they said you didn't get back to them even though you messaged them through the app? So everything comes with its pros and cons. That's why I hired people, because I didn't want to spend my time on the phone. But again, it comes down to your strategy, how you want to do it. And if you only have like 1 to 5 cars, it's really not going to be that much work. Once you get over 50 cars, it's a full-time job. So I really do suggest hiring out. But make sure you treat your guests with respect, message them back, answer any questions they have. And a lot of times you can just direct them to Turo, and Turo supports excellence. So you can have your guests call Turo instead of dealing with you, and that's going to save you a lot of time as well. So try to message them through the app first to save time. And if needed, do a phone call. And lastly, to keep 5-star reviews, do what you say you're going to do. Make sure your car has pictures of what the car actually looks like. Don't take pictures online of a brand new Mitsubishi Mirage if yours is a 2015 with 140,000 miles on it. Picture the car, keep expectations realistic. Make sure you do what you say you're going to do. If your car is supposed to be ready at a certain time, your car needs to be ready at that time for the guest. So if they want to extend the trip, make sure there's no other bookings in the way so you can actually extend the trip. Basically, just follow through with your word. That's the same in every business, and I hate to say it, a lot of people don't do that on the Turo platform. They cancel their trips, they give guests unrealistic expectations, and at the end of the day, they end up getting kicked off of Turo, or they quit because they say, there's no money in this. Well, it's just because you didn't run it like a business. You ran it like some passive income, get rich quick scheme where you think you can just throw your car on, it's just gonna rent, and you don't have to deal with anything else. That's not how it works. Turo's hard. This isn't the easiest business to get into, and it's not passive income when you start. A lot of people say, look how I made like 6 figures passively. Well, yeah, you can, and I do make it passively, but when I started, this was the furthest thing from a passive income business that I could imagine. You can do that once you get employees, infrastructure, and systems, but at the beginning, this is hard work, and if you're not willing to work hard, and you're just looking for some get-rich-quick scheme or passive income, then Turo's not for you. And by doing all of these things, I have repeat customers. So the average amount of rentals somebody has from me is 5.5 right now. Some people have been renting vehicles from me for over 2 years straight. Why is that? It's because I do what I say I'm going to do. I keep my cars well maintained. I keep 5-star reviews coming in, and I never let my customers down. I give realistic expectations, and I run a great business. And remember, your best customers and people more likely to do business with you again are clients who you have serviced in the past and exceeded their expectations. Reviews play a crucial role of people choosing you over the competition, especially when it comes to trusting you for their ride and vehicle. All right, the next thing we're going to be talking about with what I've learned from doing over 1,500 trips on Turo is pricing structure and market dynamics. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to figure out how to price your vehicle and beat the competition every single time. There's an art of pricing your listing strategically. It's essential to understand market dynamics, seasonal trends, and competitor pricing to maximize your earning potential. Okay, so Turo has a feature called automatic pricing. What do I mean by automatic pricing? So that means Turo is going to give you a minimum number you can put in for the lowest you want to rent your car and a maximum number for the highest you want to rent your car. So for example, if you take a Mitsubishi Mirage 2017, Turo might recommend the minimum price of $29 a day and the maximum price of $89 a day. So how does that work, you're asking? Well, Turo's algorithm then looks at supply and demand in your area, It looks at pricing trends, it looks at booking trends, and it prices your car to maximize your earnings between those two numbers. So if your minimum's 29 and your maximum's like 89, Turo might price your car around $45 to $50 depending on how much demand is in the area at the time, and they'll also look at your competitors and what they're pricing at. So I do use automatic pricing for all my cars, but I don't leave it just at that, because I've noticed the Turo algorithm will sometimes price it on the lower end because they're looking to keep the car on the road as much as possible and offer consumers a low priced ride. But at the end of the day, you're in it to make money too. So pricing is not passive. It's something I've learned is active. What do I mean by active? Well, I used to do it myself. Now I have employees doing it. We look at competitors within the entire Pittsburgh area with similar makes and models of vehicles, and we make sure that our cars are priced at the same or just $1 or $2 lower than theirs, so we show up higher in the results. Turo rewards those who have the lowest cost cars on the platform. They do a few things with the algorithm. I don't work for Turo, it's just what I've recognized from doing over 1,500 trips. They reward people that have the lowest prices and the best reviews. So if you can do a combination of the two, then you're a winner. And you don't want to go too low either. If you can go $1 lower than your competitor, you're still going to beat them. But if you use automatic pricing, they might make it $5 to $10 lower. So that's where the actively looking at prices and doing market research rewards you. So I recommend looking within your area, like you're going to book a car as a guest. And make sure to look out like a week or two in the future, not just what's available that day, because that's going to give you a better representation of your market. If you look at what's just available that day, then you're not going to be able to see all the cars that are currently on trips and booked. So look 2 to 3 weeks out and check pricing. And that's going to give you a real good idea on what you can charge for your vehicles. And also, don't just look at what people are pricing their vehicles for. Look at their profile. Look how many trips the car's been on. Just because somebody's trying to price their Toyota Corolla at $150 a day doesn't mean it's ever been on a trip. Some of these people aren't very serious in the business. They're just trying to pay off their car payments and make a few extra dollars. I don't do that. This is a full-time job for me. I buy cars just to rent. So sometimes when you're competing with, let's say Betsy, who has a 2018 Toyota Corolla, and she's pricing it at $150 a day. Well, she doesn't know the market, she doesn't understand how the business works, and nobody's going to rent her car. And on the opposite side of that, you're going to have people that are trying to price their vehicle too low because they also don't understand how Turo works. They don't understand that even though you charge that price, you have costs like maintenance, tracker fees, car wash, employees, anything else you can think of, depreciation of the vehicle. And they're greenhorns. They've never done any business. They don't understand all those costs. So they're going to price their car at, $25 a day in prices that are unrealistic where they don't even realize it, but they're losing money. So just because you see somebody on the extreme end that's low, they might just be trying to make enough money to cover that $400, $500 car payments. And at the end of the day, when they do their numbers, they didn't make a cent because of depreciation. So don't fall for the trap of being in the race to the bottom. Look at the cars in your area that are doing the best, that are renting the most consistently, and then look at their pricing and try to beat them by like $1 or $2. If you leave it up to Turo's automatic pricing, like I said, they might discount it to $5 to $10 less, and that adds up to hundreds of dollars for a month-long trip, or just over a year, could be thousands of dollars. That's why we do active pricing, and I recommend doing a competitive analysis of your market every 1 to 2 weeks. It only takes like 15 minutes, so 15 minutes to save thousands of dollars, I think that's an easy yes. Remember, finding the right balance between profitability and affordability is the key to Turo's success. So Turo actually added something new to the platform for Power Hosts, which allows you to look at the analytics of your vehicles in depth like you've never been able to before. That shows you booking rates, what the prices are in your area, and it saves a lot of the time. So in today's digital age, harnessing the power of technology and data analytics can give you a competitive edge in the Turo marketplace. So I've been looking at the Power Host tools and I find them to be pretty useful, but at the end of the day, I still do the market analysis and other things on the side. Those are great, but I look at this business daily with my employees, weekly to go more in depth on other subjects, but we look at the cars renting every single day. So I don't let the cars just sit there and at the end of the month, I'm like, oh, okay, well, my Ford Fusion only rented for 2 weeks out of the month. What happened, guys? No, we look at them every single day. I'm like, why is this car not on the road? Every single day, we are looking at our prices to make sure the vehicles are rented at least 25 days out of 30 every single month. So I recommend looking at it as a daily thing. And then you're not going to have to look at reports at the end of the month and say, well, the Ford Fusion was only rented 2.5 weeks. What happened, guys? That's not how you run a business. Turo is a very active, cutthroat business, and you're going to want to make sure that you're checking your cars and that they're going out every single day. It's very simple. If you have an employee or if you're working at the place where your cars are stored, just see if they're on the lot. If they're on the lot for a day or two, then lower your price. Now, another major key to knowing if you're going to be successful on Turo or not is knowing your market and what type of cars to offer. You have to have a strategy. If I went into the Pittsburgh market and decided I wanted to rent Lamborghinis and Ferraris, I would be out of business right now. I'd have no money. I'd tell my wife, it didn't work out because I thought Ferraris were cool. I wanted to rent one out. And now with depreciation, the market analysis I've done in the Pittsburgh area, would have had no money, probably expensive car payments, and been out of business within a few months. So I don't rent cars that I like to drive. I rent cars that are profitable. In my market and a lot of markets throughout the United States, economy cars are the #1 way to go. Some hosts get caught up in the luxury dreams of paying off their Lamborghini, but it comes down to those hosts were never in it to run a business. They just thought owning a Lamborghini would be cool, and they wanted to take photos of themselves in the Lamborghini and then rent it from time to time. They never thought about depreciation. They never thought about maintenance. They never thought what would happen when they go to sell it. They never thought about their market and if a Lamborghini is actually needed. I'd like to drive a Lamborghini. I personally drive a Mercedes-Benz. I'm not going to rent those. The closest I ever came to a luxury car was when I was renting a BMW X5, and then there was an issue with an oil pan in it. And from there, I got a quote for $3,500 to fix something that I thought would maybe be $500 at the most. And that's what happens when you rent luxury cars, because luxury cars require you to take them to luxury dealers. These cars now are becoming so advanced on the luxury end that you have to take them to these dealers because they use special tools that other mechanics can't even buy. And this dealerships are creating a subscription product for maintenance where you're not able to hire, Joe down the street to fix it. I stay away from them. If you're in Miami or LA, I could see the market in it and how it would work. But I still think a lot of those guys aren't making as much money as they claim. And it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors to look cool on Instagram. We do economy cars only, and that's where we've made the big bucks. I've been able to get cars as low as $3,000, and I try to keep my average cost at $10,000 per vehicle or less. So I'm paying these things off within 6 to 10 months, even after paying employees insurance. And that's how I've been a winner. So make sure to do a market analysis of your area, see what's actually renting, and don't just fall for Ferrari dreams and Lamborghini wishes. It's not worth it unless you're in an area like that, then all power to you. Most markets, economy cars are going to be where you make your bank on Turo. So another question a lot of people ask me in the car rental coach program is, should I get a partner? I do have a partner. My partner knows everything about vehicles. They actually own a used car dealership. So they brought so much value into this business, I can't even imagine doing it without them. And that's how I was able to scale to over 50 cars. So if you are looking for a partner, what I recommend, make sure they have skills that you do not have. You don't want to have 2 guys or 2 girls that have the same exact skill set, because then where's the value? So say, for example, you're really good at technology, you know how to rent vehicles out, or you're just good with social media, you're good with marketing, you know how Turo works because you've watched car rental coach videos and other videos on YouTube, learning everything you need to do. It might make sense to team up with a guy that, say, has been in the car business for years, but is not good with technology, doesn't know what Turo is, and that's where you can come in, create value, and list the vehicles that he has with low overhead. Or if you want to learn about cars, which I'm not saying I don't know anything about cars, I know a decent bit, then you could do it all yourself. But if you're bringing in a partner, make sure they have skills you don't have, like I said, or money. But there's lots of ways to get funding, so I would not make a partnership just based on getting some capital up front, because you can always figure out other ways to get the capital. But once you pick a wrong partner just based off an investment, you're kind of screwed. I mean, so when it comes to partnership, like I said, it's all about where you're at. It's a case-by-case scenario. And so I can't say I recommend getting a partner or not getting a partner. It's really a case-by-case thing, and everybody's different. All depends on the value they bring, the cash constraints you have, how much time you want to spend on this business. And really, that's it. So that's a hard question to answer. I got a partner, but it's worked out extremely well for me. So it's all about picking that person. If you do pick a partner, make sure you vet them. We always say hire slowly, fire fast. And you can't fire your partner because most likely you're going to have an agreement and an LLC. So you really want to make sure you pick them right the first time, even more importantly than an employee, because a bad partner can be the difference between succeeding or going out of business right from the start. All right, besides a partnership, I've learned a lot about hiring people doing over 1,500 trips on Turo. This is where most of my headaches have come in from this business. I love renting cars. Managing people, it's not my favorite thing to do. It is a strength of mine. I'm good at it. I just don't like it. So I'm going to walk you through a few stories of people that I've hired in the past and what went wrong and how I could have fixed it. So I'm not going to say any names here, even though I'd kind of like to. My first hire was a guy that was older than me. He was in his mid-30s and worked out extremely well. So he told me that he was ex-military, which I liked because that means he has some sort of structure or discipline. He had a job history where he worked for a rental car company. He worked for Hertz and was a detailer there. And everything seemed good on paper. And this guy was very good to start. He showed up on time. He got everything done. He asked the right questions. And I was just thinking, wow, like what a great hire to start. Well, then things started to get a little weird. So the guy's stories started to become more and more, let's say, exaggerated. He would talk about how he was a music teacher in LA, that he was an actor, and things started to become a little weird. I let that go. I thought maybe he's just one of those guys that wants to act cool and have all these talents. And maybe he was an actor, maybe he was an expert at the piano, maybe he did do all these things. He started talking about the war he was in, and some of it didn't add up. I have a lot of family that's military, and his stories seemed exaggerated, where it's just like he was always the hero in them. He's the one that saved all of the troops, and I didn't want to call anybody out on it, because if that was all true, then he was an American hero the way he was talking. And then things started to get weirder and weirder. He then told me a few months in, he was actually kicked out of the military because after he performed these huge victories in war, it messed with him mentally, and they decided to give him a dishonorable discharge, which that didn't add up to me with the stories. Still didn't want to call him out of respect in case he actually was a veteran. But then things started getting weirder. He showed up to work one day, and this is probably like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I smelled booze on him. Obviously he was drinking, I could smell beer on him, and I called him out for it, and he just told me he was hungover. So I thought, okay, whatever. The guy had too much to drink the night before. He's been an okay employee. Nothing bad has happened. The worst thing he did at this point was have a few exaggerated stories. I thought, whatever, if that's the worst case scenario, that the guy has exaggerated stories and thinks he can, be a war hero, musician, actor, movie star, whatever, it's like, in the car industry, if that's the worst thing you have, it's not too bad. Then, fast forward 1 month, I look at my bank account. So I've been paying this guy with checks, and I notice a Duquesne Light bill paid to an address that wasn't where I kept my cars. So I did a little bit of investigation, my investigation was simply calling the electric company and asking them the address of the light bill that was paid. So I trace it down, do a Google Maps search, use a little Facebook. I used a website called Truth Finder too, which allows you to find out a lot of information on people by just addresses and things like that. Good for background checks, all that stuff. And I found out it was my employee and his cousin's address, and he ended up stealing the money from it. So I confronted him on this, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. I looked him right in the eyes. I said, I'm not gonna say his name, but looked at him and just said, yeah, is there anything you want to tell me? Anything weird happened lately, or are you hurting for money? And just eyed him up. He did the back and forth eye movement where I knew he was lying, and he just said no. And I said, yeah, well, I think your cousin used my bank account to pay his bills. And he gave me the fake gasp, like, what? From there on, I didn't trust him. and I didn't call the police at that time because this was a $150 bill. I thought maybe the guy was hurting. This was my first hire ever. And then he hit me again that same day for another $150. I froze my bank accounts. And at that point, I knew he was getting fired, but I wanted to get my money back from him as well. So I told him it's either I call the cops about this and have your cousin locked up, his cousin. Meanwhile, he was the one that got the checks, but he ended up confessing and saying that he had a uncashed check and his cousin took the account and routing number off of it, and he knew nothing about it, but they lived in the same address, right? So it's like, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, can't be fooled again. That's a joke. But I ended up having him pay me the money out of his paychecks, and then I let him go right after that. It's like, you can't keep somebody around once they steal from you. At that point, the relationship's ruined. Treated the guy well too, gave him $100 bonuses all the time, bought his food a lot, even went out with the guy and had some food before. But, what I did wrong with that hire was I didn't check his references on his resume, and I'd never verified if he was in the military or not. So it might have all been a lie. He did work for me for 6 months, and he did a good job up until like month number 5. So who knows what happened. I think he started hitting the bottle a little bit too much because I smelled the alcohol on him a few times, and that's where I think that relationship went sour. But that could have been avoided if I would have checked the references and hired a little bit more slowly. Anyways, I've had a bunch of different hiring stories. I'm not going to go through every single one because it's going to get crazy, but I've had some really good hires too. I had a woman who was a great employee. She just ended up going to college, so that was the issue with that, and she couldn't maintain this job while also going to school, which I completely understand. Right now, I have a good friend of mine working for me who graduated from Penn State with me as well, and he is the rental car manager. I needed somebody to take my position that was also educated because this business isn't super easy, and I needed a professional to train, so I had to pay him better than I paid the other people, but he also has a higher skill set, and the higher skill sets allowed me to scale to over 50 cars. And over the next 2 years, I hope to get over 100 cars, and he's playing a huge role in making that a reality. Because if I had to do everything myself, it wouldn't be possible. I own 5 other businesses besides this in the e-commerce space to coaching, and doing this all myself would be too much for me to handle because I wanted to build a passive income source and not work in the business. So if you're going to hire somebody at that level when you're scaling and getting over 50 cars, you're going to have to hire a professional. You don't want to hire some high school kid that's good at doing details unless you plan on putting the work in and training them and, you have the patience to help them become the person they have to be to run a company like this. Instead, the faster way to do it would just be to hire at somebody with experience, probably a little older, at least late 20s from what I've seen in the job market, or you have to invest your time and resources in training somebody to then take over. I'd rather just pay for speed, but that's also because I have other businesses besides this. So if you're somebody that's looking to grow this and do only this, then you may have the time to have somebody train under you and teach them the ropes and get them to the top. But like I said, I just decided to pay for speed so I can do other things and then grow this faster. So if you do everything I said, you can become a power host on Turo like I am. What's a power host? Power host status gives credibility and benefits, elevated customer support systems that make a huge deal and is extremely helpful with this many trips going on. This power host status is superior compared to the outsourced standard customer service you receive from Turo, and when you're moving with this much speed and this many trips, you're going to want to make sure that you have that power host customer support because they are going to make a huge difference in the time spent on customers, issues, vehicle swaps, reimbursements, and everything you can think of. So going from being a regular host to a power host was the best thing that ever happened to me being on the Turo platform. And I mentioned this one before, but I'm going to mention it one more time. When you grow this business, and even when you only have, say, 1 or 2 cars on the platform, having those connections with body shops, mechanics, car washes, all that stuff from the very beginning is key to growing this business and going to help you in the long run. I have 3 different mechanics I now use and trust that give me phenomenal pricing compared to somebody that just got into the market. I also have key guys that make keys when the guests lose the key to the vehicle, which happens more than you would think. I have numbers for 2 different tow truck companies that give me great discounted pricing to go pick up vehicles. I did all of that by giving them lots of business, finding the right people when I first started, treating these guys well. You wouldn't believe how people treat tow truck drivers and key people in the car industry. It's kind of ridiculous. It's the same with any business. Treat people with respect and do good business. Pay them when you say you're going to pay them. I've had these guys tell me so many stories about how other hosts have treated them, and that's why I believe I was able to get ahead. One, I'm actually a good person and do this because that's how I do every business. But two, if you treat people well, they're going to treat you well and you're going to form relationships. Business is all about relationship building, and once you have those relationships, that usually equates to making more money. In summary, you want to make sure when renting vehicles out, you're providing the best service, best quality cars, getting reviews, running it like a business, because it is one, getting help when you need it, and making the right connections. This will make each trip feel very easy and allow you to scale up to over 1,500 trips like I have in a short period of time. And if you want to see how we scaled up to over 6 figures in only 2 years, click this video right here. We'll see you on the next one.